transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, Times, and filed with the clerk of Princeton. Such notices have been placed on the official bulletin board at the Princeton Municipal Complex and on the Princeton website. And I think it's also on the windows of the municipal building. Anyway, so Elizabeth, do you want to do the roll call?
Yes. Ms. Capozzoli,
I'm here.
Mr. Endersby,
Here.
Ms. Satterfield,
Here.
Mr. Shore, Mr. Shatskin,
Here.
Ms. Tazalar,
Here.
Mr. Von Zumbush,
Here.
Mr. White,
Here.
Ms. Campbell,
Here.
The White's here too.
we have a
I
quorum.
think Tom's audio may not be on.
Oh, Tom's here.
Great.
His
And Ed's
picture is
here.
there.
Hi, Ed. So let's look at the, first of all, Elizabeth, do you have any announcements?
I don't, thank you.
Okay. There's a resolution for Jessica Vieira and Matthew Roden. So I only have one correction to that, and that's on page 2. Instead of asphalt, page 2, number 2, it says asphalt singled roof, and it should be shingled roof.
Okay.
Are there any other changes or corrections to the resolution? If not, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second.
So moved by Celia and seconded by Robert. Elizabeth, do you want to do a vote?
You want me roll call?
Or we
Or do
could
you want to just do a group?
I'll just do a group. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the application of RB Homes minor site plan on 11 Quarry Street.
Okay.
Elizabeth?
I'm going to
Do
try
we
to
have
pull in the applicants.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, Chris Tarr, you're being promoted. Daniel, you're also being promoted. And Ryan Kennedy.
Okay, great.
Julie,
Yeah.
and Erlene has her hand up. I don't know if that is intended or I don't know if she's in the waiting room, attendee room. I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if she has a question or.
Who is that?
Erlene, and Erlene.
See if
I
she
think-
wants to write in a question. If she
Right.
would like to ask a question.
I mean, at this time, we're not taking public comment, but we will be in a little bit. So first we have to hear from Elizabeth for her report. Then we want to hear from the applicant. Then we want to hear responses from the commission, and then we want to hear public comment. So I think we can go ahead. Elizabeth, do you want to start with your report?
Of course, thank you. So the applicant, RB Homes, Inc., has filed an application pursuant to the Princeton Borough and Municipal Land Use Ordinance to restore the front portion of the existing house, demolish the rear section of the existing house, and replace it with a new addition. The applicant has satisfied the requirements for application requesting demolition and comply by the procedure set forth in accordance to section 10B 29012. And I'm just going to confirm that with Ed.
Madam Chair, that's correct. Elizabeth shared the noticing and we're fine.
Thank you. There are no variances required with this application. So the process, as everyone knows, pursuant to section 10B 376 1A, when the application is being reviewed, has been classified as a minor application, the Historic Preservation Commission stands in and exercises exclusively the same functions as the Site Plan Advisory Board. They also are required to provide as advisory to the Planning Board comments and recommendations in writing and present at the meeting, which has always been done in the past. So the project description is, and also this project is type 2 in the historic district, which the commission is aware is subject to preservation plan review for any changes visible from the public right-of-way, painting, or any other added color or unpainted surfaces or pre-pined and pre-finished material. So moving on to the background, at HPC's August 20th, 2018 regular monthly meeting, the applicant, RB Homes, was heard for concept review. Daniel Barsky, representing RB Homes, expressed a desire to demolish the existing structure on the property and build new residential buildings. He referenced Weiss Preservation Planning LLC's 2015 property inventory survey, which classified this property as non-contributing. It was the commission's opinion at that meeting that although a portion of the open porch is enclosed, it is evident that the porch was at one time completely open and the porch still accentuates the symmetry of the facade. This and other defining features of the building make the building very relevant. Therefore, it was HP's opinion that this property is a contributing property to the Witherspoon-Jackson Historic District. A member further advised Mr. Barsky that for many years a business was conducted from this business to support the African American community. Then in October 21st, 2019, HBC's meeting, the applicant RHJ Quarry LLC presented an application for the same property to demolish and construct new. The applicant's purchase of the property was contingent on receiving approval. HBC denied the application. So today, RB Homes, Inc. is returning with a fully designed new application which retains the original front section of the house and demolishes the rear portion, which will replace with the new addition. The development will provide 3 dwelling units and 5 parking spaces. So for the existing conditions, the house on the property was built circa 1840 in a vernacular style. And I know the commission members have already heard this already because they've heard it for the applicant previously. But I know that there are some members who probably were not present. So the oldest part of the house is a 2-story L-shaped structure that faces Quarry Street with a gable roof and chimney on the ridge of its east end. Off the rear of the building, aligned with the west gable end, is a 2-story shed extension and a small 1-story addition off the extension. 5 bays face Quarry Street with evenly spaced 1-over-1 windows on the second floor. Windows on the first and second floor align on the front door and with windows to its east. Off to the south, which is the front, and east elevation, which is the driveway side, is a 1-story wraparound porch that expands the full width of these elevations. The porch has a hip roof with a centered entry front gable roof. The west end of the porch has been enclosed with a compound window unit facing Quarry Street and a door with access onto the covered porch. Under the porch along the east elevation are 2 doors that flank the exposed brick chimney. There are no windows on this elevation. It is believed porch columns have been replaced with greater space columns than its original design. Off to the north end of the porch are steps that lead to the backyard. 3 windows are found in the west elevation, 1 on the first floor closer to the street, and 1 on each floor near the back. The house is clad with green-colored machine shingles, and the roof has dark gray asphalt shingles. The property itself is level and generally slopes to the rear of the lot. On the east side of the porch is a gravel driveway that terminates at the porch steps. A small shed along the east property line near the street is shown on the property survey. The subject property is fairly large for the Witherspoon-Jackson Historic District. However, it is consistent with lots found on this block. Its lot depth is slightly shorter and its width slightly wider compared to lots on the same side of the street. However, its width is consistent with the lots across Quarry Street that have the same 60-foot width. The property contains 10,858 square feet, approximately a quarter acre, with 60-foot lot width and 179.3 lot depth. It conforms to lot size and bulk dimensions for the former borough R4 zone requirements. On the property, there are a number of trees that are located in the backyard, mostly along the side property lines. There was a tree inventory provided which identifies 30 trees with a caliber of 6 inches or greater. According to this inventory, there's a mix of species, largely Norway maple and slippery elm. Of these trees, there are 17 larger caliber, which are classified as 16 inches and greater, and there's a list of them below on the report. So moving on to the proposed application. The original section of the house will be restored to provide 1 dwelling unit. 2 new residential units will be constructed behind the existing house to the new addition. So the first part of the project, which is the restoration of the existing house, that's to remain. The front portion of the existing house has retained a 22-foot 1-inch step by 41.7-inch wide section, which includes the front porch. This structure will be restored to provide a 2-floor residential unit. And with this restoration, all windows will be replaced with Pella traditional double hung windows, except for the picture window, which faces the street on the front of the house, which will match existing. All doors will be replaced with new Pella doors to match existing as well. Existing asphalt siding will be replaced with Boral 1x6 Dutch lap siding and painted. The existing front porch decking, steps, railing, columns, and other porch components will be restored and replaced to match existing. Rim board below the porch will be restored or replaced to match existing as well. The roof will be replaced with a slate line shingle in English slate. And the existing aluminum K gutters and rectangular leaders will be painted to match siding. The second part of the project is the partial demolition of the existing house. For the previous applicant, RHJ Quarry LLC, a structural report was prepared and as part of this application has also been included as part of the documents. In the summary of Mr. Bush's report, who was a structural engineer, he stated upon visual inspection, the building is wood frame with a partial basement and a non-accessible crawl space. The building is believed to have been built in several stages, with the oldest part being the front of the house. The existing structure is in poor condition, and the cause of much of the deterioration caused is likely due to the low grade of the existing structure, and previous repair or replacements were executed poorly. So the last part of the building part of this application is the addition. So the addition will be 2.5 stories and approximately 30 feet wide and 54 feet deep, with a height of 28 feet 4 inches. The east side of the addition will align with the existing porch. 2 new dwelling units will be created from the addition, 1 unit on the first floor and the second on the upper floor. Separate entrances for each unit will be off the east building elevation. There'll be 2 size windows, 1 rectangular and 1 in square. All windows will be 2/2 Pella traditional double hung windows as well. Pella entry doors will be 4 pane glass on the upper half of the door and the lower half with 3 horizontal panels, which are similar to what they're representing for the existing front door replacement. A small portico roof will shelter each entrance and provide recessed lighting. Lighting will be equipped with a 60-watt incandescent bulb or a warm spectrum LED light less than 2700 Kelvin. Aluminum K gutters and rectangular leaders will be painted to match the fascia and siding. Slate line shingles and English slate will match those replaced on the existing house. And there are 3 new AC units that will be installed off the west building elevation. So with this application are additional site improvements. One is the existing curb cut will continue to be used, and existing driveway will be narrowed to 8 feet wide to provide about 2 feet between the existing porch and the new driveway. The driveway will extend beyond the porch and connect to a new 5-space parking lot in the rear yard. The driveway and parking area will be macadam. A new light fixture for the parking lot will be installed behind the back up aisle. A Philips Guardco LED luminaire fixture will be mounted 12 feet on a straight round pole. The lighting will be set on a timer that shuts off at 10 p.m. A house side shield will be installed if required. And there is a new trash area, which is going to be 18 feet by 4 3/4 feet, which will be on a gravel surface and located at the end of the south parking stall adjacent to the back of the house. It will be enclosed with a 5-foot-tall pressure-treated wood fence. There'll be 4 gates, each which will be 3 to 4 feet wide, and it will line the front of the enclosure. A new 6-foot-high wood board-on-board pressure-treated privacy fence will also be installed along the rear and portions of the side property line. The fences will terminate near the building addition. Of the 17 larger caliber trees on the property, 8 of these trees will be removed. 4 are Norway maple and are classified as invasive species. A new front yard landscape is proposed. Box will be planted to create a linear foundation planting along the front of the house with little turf big blue adjacent to the public sidewalk. In addition, 2 ornamental and 1 shade tree will be planted in the rear yard near the west property line. And 2 new street trees are proposed. New boxwood plantings will be added around the trash enclosure and a line of deciduous shrubs planted behind the northern row of parking spaces. Behind the new parking lot will be 3 dry wells to collect the increased impervious runoff from the development. 3 24-inch diameter lids will provide access to the dry wells and will be visible at grade. So the criteria for preservation review on this is listed. And also there are elements in there about the landscape fencing and things. So if we scroll down to comments and recommendations, I'll just go through these. The proposed color scheme for the existing house in addition should be added and provided for the commission to review. The height of the new addition is 5.5 feet taller than the roof ridge of the existing portion of the house to remain. HBC should consider if the taller portion will tower over the original house and dwarf the presence of the original house from the streetscape, or if it is acceptable. A large portion of the open spaces behind the parking area. It would be beneficial to have access to usable open space in closer proximity to the residential units. It is recommended that the new AC units be shifted approximately 10 feet north along the west building elevation to be away from the current windows. It is recommended the commission support staff's report under the comments under landscape, lighting, and pedestrian bicycle safety in their May 18, 2020 engineering and zoning report, in addition to their comments that they included as far as the dry well, combining a combination of porous paving or pavers and a rain garden to access the rear property be utilized instead of the dry well, and that all proposed electric, telephone, and cable for the new building to be provided underground. Grading should be revised or is recommended to be revised around the existing 6-inch magnolia to save this tree if it's in good condition. In addition, regrading to the rear of the building should be investigated to minimize proposed grade changes, which could enable saving the 30-inch white ash and 16-inch slippery elm also if they are in good condition. It is also recommended that LED parking lighting should be within the warm spectrum and not to exceed the 2700 Kelvin. A 24-inch honey locust and a 30-inch London plane tree are the existing street trees fronting the project site. The London plane tree next to the existing driveway entrance looks to be failing, which it was a year ago, and the condition of the honey locust appear to be in good condition. It is recommended the town arborist inspect the condition of both trees and replacement trees provided if either are determined in poor condition. The parking area proposes a 12-foot mounted light fixture with illumination that spills over the applicant's property line. This property falls within a residential neighborhood and adjacent properties along Quarry Street and several fronting Witherspoon Street. If the house side shield is not able to contain the illumination, it is recommended the applicant consider an alternate lighting solution that's more sensitive to the neighborhood property by breaking up or relocating the parking to the rear of the property, making them less physically disturbing. And the last item is, it is recommended if the application is approved, that the applicant be required to submit missing details, product sheets, amended landscape plans, and other building and site changes that might be required by the HPC Commission. And then there are 8 items that I'm going to leave for the applicant to address under comments for them. That's it, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tar, do you want to address the report, or Mr. Barsky, do you want to start?
Thanks, Chairwoman. Daniel has a PowerPoint presentation, so you're going to have to give him control to share the
Great.
screen.
Hopefully he has it.
Yeah, hopefully. Ryan Kennedy also has one, so we have two people who have it. So
Okay,
try Daniel and see where we come out.
great. Do you guys see the share ability?
Daniel, share screen.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Open system.
Dan, I have it open as well, if give it another minute, but otherwise I can share it from mine.
Yeah, I think it's loading up right now. Just give me one moment.
Okay, thank you.
You should be allowed to share screen. As I'm trying. Oh, there we go. Share.
There we go.
All right, we're seeing it.
Yes, you guys
Thank
see
you.
it?
Yep.
All right.
Hey,
Yep.
Daniel,
Yes,
this is Ed Schmear, the board attorney. Do you swear the testimony you're going to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daniel Barsky. I'll be presenting on behalf of RB Homes. And so Elizabeth gave a detailed report, and I'm going to elaborate on it and address the comments and recommendations from HPC. So let me start here. This is the tax map. 11 Quarry is outlined in blue, and this is Quarry Street and the surrounding neighborhood. 11 Quarry is the largest lot in this tax map view, with the exception of the Waxwood building lot and the municipal parking lot to the rear. On this next slide is the existing condition survey. It shows the original house in dark gray. There is an addition, which is kind of a bay window now towards the front facing Quarry Street. And there's a larger addition on the back on the dashed line, which I'll get to shortly. So here is a picture of that addition that we believe from the structural report was built somewhere in the 1940s or 50s. And
Daniel, can everybody hear Daniel? He dropped off mine.
Yeah, he dropped off.
Daniel, did you go
Yeah.
dark?
No, do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. The picture here is of the addition I just showed on the existing conditions survey, which we're proposing to demolish and start our new addition from, and to restore and keep the existing structure. So we have a report that we referenced to from Leonard Bush Associates, from a structural engineer, that addresses some of the structural problems with the existing home. Maybe it's not very relevant towards our application, since we're proposing to save the home and restore it. But just to give you an idea, there's a lot involved to get this house into a condition where it's structurally safe. And here are some pictures and descriptions, I believe from the last application from RHJ. You guys have seen some of these and went over them, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but just as a note that there is quite a commitment on our end to bring this home current so that it's structurally safe and that it also meets code of 2020. So there's quite a bit of work to do on the home itself, which we do plan on restoring and bringing back to life. The addition, which we're proposing, the addition of the existing home, which we're proposing to demolish and add on new in the rear, also has a lot of problems. One of the issues being that the foundation is severely compromised, the grading was never done properly, and there's a little explanation up top here that describes the problems with the addition part specifically. Again, our proposal is to take this addition part down and do a new addition in the back. So I'm just going to stop here for one moment. And when we came in front of DC for a concept meeting in 2018, there was what felt like an overwhelming consensus from the HPC committee to restore and save the existing structure. And so that's what we've come back with. These are just some notes that were taken from the concept meeting that urges from the board that they would be in favor of doing some type of addition on the back, even multifamily, which again is what we're proposing, if we restore the structure in the front. So, we were understanding of that, and so that's why we're coming back with this specific proposal. So on this next slide here is our proposed site. Outlined in blue is the existing structure that would remain, including the porch, including the bay window. And in green is the new addition we're proposing on the rear. It's a 3-family application, so there would be 1 unit where the existing building is, then 1 unit on the first floor of the addition, and a 3rd unit on the 2nd floor of the addition. There's also parking that complies to ordinances in the rear and open space beyond that, but I'll get into a little bit more detail on the site plan as we move further along. So again, the oldest part of the home is to be saved and restored, and this addition on the back is outlined in green with 2 additional units. The next slide here is the zoning requirements and bulk requirements in this zone, which we do meet all the bulk requirements. There's no variances that are needed for this application. So we are conforming to the zone, and I'll go a little further about that in detail as well. So this is the front elevation drawing. It shows you the existing structure. Again, we're going to restore the existing structure. and it gives you some specifications here. We're going to use English slate shingles. We're going to put aluminum K gutters and paint them to match the fascia. We're going to take off the existing asbestos siding and use Boral Dutch lap siding, and I'll go into what kind of colors we're going to use later in the presentation. We're also going to use the Pella traditional double hung window to match what's there existing. And we're also going to save the porch, the columns, the railings. My anticipation is that we're able to save the columns. Again, some of them are mismatched because it's done over a period of time, but we're going to take the most, the oldest part to match to and go from there. Here is the elevation of the right side or east elevation. So you can see the existing structure and the addition in the back. We're also going to use slate line English slate shingles on the addition, Boral Dutch lap siding, which our anticipation is to paint it a different color, Pella traditional double hungs to match the windows of the home that's being restored in the front. And you can see 2 entry doors in the rear, 1 to each apartment, 1 to the first floor and 1 to the second floor. We also carried the roof across this right or east side elevation to kind of give a continuous look, not to make a major break or impact on the home. Here's the rear elevation. So you can see a portion of the existing home and a portion of the addition. The same specs to match as I showed you in the previous slides. Oh, excuse me. And here's the left side elevation. Same thing, we're running this roof across and the same specs to match as I showed you on the other 2 elevations. This is the proposed site plan. Outlined in dark gray is the proposed addition. You can see a driveway coming along the right side of the property to 5 parking spots in the back. There's open space beyond that with dry wells underground. It shows the replacement trees. It shows the landscape detail on the front. And again, I will address that more in detail as we go further along. Here are some pictures of the neighborhood. So this is a picture coming from Witherspoon Street down Quarry on the opposite side of 11 Quarry. This next slide is also coming from Witherspoon. You can see 11 Quarry is in green. It's 3 homes down. And to give you a perspective from Witherspoon. And this is from John Street. This is from the opposite side of Quarry, 11 Quarry, coming off of John Street. And this is on the same side of 11 Quarry, coming off of John Street. You can see the Waxwood building here. So one of the things that we addressed was an FAR comparison. This FAR comparison is excluding Waxwood since it's a very specific kind of use. I would say not really in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. So using the rest of the single family and 2 family applications, we took tax assessors information to get a lot area size and the size of the home. And the average on the street is 44.4%. Our proposed is 38.8%, well under the street average of size of home compared to lot. This next slide here is a height comparison that was prepared by my civil engineer. And it takes the heights of specifically all of the homes on Quarry Street. And the average is 28.1 feet of height on Quarry. We're proposing 29 feet. And I also asked my architect to do a sightline study of the addition as compared to the proposed, the existing home as opposed to the addition in the back. And as you can see, the addition in the back is barely visible from the opposite side of the street. Certainly from a car passing by or from on the same side of the sidewalk as 11 Quarry, it's not visible at all from a height perspective. So I'm gonna just go through item by item about comments and recommendations. They're not quite in order of the way that they're listed in the report, but I lumped them together so that they pertain to each slide. The first one is the color of the home. So I'm proposing a sage green light. It's a Sherwin-Williams exterior paint to paint the Boral Dutch lap siding for the existing structure in the front, and Nomadic Desert in the rear. It's a more muted color, it's lighter, so as not to emphasize the addition in the back, but to emphasize the existing structure in the front. One of the other items was item number 3, which pertained to height. And I think I addressed that with taking the average and the proposed height of all the homes on Quarry Street, along with the sightline study to show that it's really not much taller than the other homes in the neighborhood on average. And from a sightline perspective, it's not impeding, and even from the other side of the sidewalk, isn't going to be an impediment to the neighborhood. So there was a whole lot of comments and recommendations about items related to site plan, open space, AC units, utilities, stormwater, and trees. So I'll kind of address them all here. Again, they're not in order, but they're listed here up above. So one of the items was that a large portion of the open space is behind the parking area. It would seem beneficial to have access to usable open space in closer proximity to the residential units. The reason this was designed this way is by extending the driveway further and pushing the open space closer to the units, it would create more impervious coverage, which is clearly a negative. Also, we're up against the impervious coverage from an ordinance perspective. And also for convenience, you know, people usually want to park, unload their groceries, and be closer to the unit. One of the other comments and recommendations was that the applicant is asked if there's more opportunity to provide auxiliary access to the side yard for the front and first floor dwellings to access the open space. Again, it's kind of the same concept. You would need more impervious coverage to create a specific walkway to get back to the open space. And our idea was that all the units have access down the driveway to access the open space, considering that this is a small residential parking lot. Item 6A, the staff would recommend that in lieu of a dry well, a combination of porous paving or pavers and a rain garden across the rear of the property be utilized. Oddly enough, our original submission to engineering indicated a rain garden in the rear. However, it was engineering and zoning department's determination this would trigger a variance for open space. So that open space will no longer be usable with a rain garden there. I'm happy to revisit the options with my civil engineer and the municipal engineers upon HPC's approval. If there's an opportunity to do that, to put a rain garden, I'm certainly happy to do that. But we revised the plans originally to put these dry wells because that's what they wanted. So again, I'm happy to revisit it with them. Another item was it would be beneficial to provide exterior amenities. So one of the exterior amenities that's not on the site plan but that we intend to do is to put an exterior bike rack. And of course, there's this open space component as an amenity feature. There was 3 or 4 items here, number 7, 8, and 11, that address trees. So upon obtaining building permits, of course, we will meet with the arborist to determine the status of trees in question. We'll work with the engineers and revise grading if appropriate and deemed necessary. For example, the 30-inch white ash that's being requested by HPC to perhaps be saved. I know the arborist, as a general rule, is asking them to be taken down because they're dying all over town and creating a safety hazard. So again, I'm happy to talk to the arborist and work with my civil engineer to try to save these trees if appropriate. I'm certainly not opposed to it, but I'm willing to work with the municipal departments to work my way through that. Another item was, it's recommended the new AC units are shifted approximately 10 feet north along the west building elevation. We have no problem doing that. We can certainly move them back. So it complies with zoning and there's no issue from our end, so we're okay to do that. Item 13F from comments and recommendations talks about the trash enclosure, if it could be moved away from the units. And again, we're okay with doing that. We think that's a good recommendation. We can move it behind the backup aisle where you see here in the site plan of the parking lot. And so we can do that, it's not a problem. And the last item from a site plan perspective is that the proposed electric, telephone, and cable should all be underground, and we're committed to doing that. All the utilities will be run underground. This next slide here addresses lighting, and there's a couple comments from the comments and recommendations from HPC. The first item is recommended LED parking lot lighting should be within the warm color spectrum and not to exceed 2,700 kilowatts. We're okay with doing that. It's not a problem. We can comply with that. Number 12, parking area proposes a 12-foot mounted light fixture with illumination that spills over the applicant's property line. So I posted here on this slide the light spillage, which is actually, there's all zeros where the homes are next door. But I spoke with my engineer and he thought it would be a good idea if we shift the pole 2.5 feet inwards towards our lot. And we can also add a precautionary shield, which would move any type of light spillage even further away from neighbors, but still cover all the parking area that we need to by ordinance. And the last item for lighting is what time will the timer in the parking lot be set to turn on? I have it specified as 10 p.m. Again, if there's an objection to that, we can turn it on later. I don't see that being an issue. And then there was just a couple other items. The north arrow of the site grading plan should be corrected. Okay, my engineer will do that. And then there was a question about the lattice and our intent under the porch of the existing home. And our intention is to replace the lattice to the same type of style that it is now. One of the other comments and recommendations was to give more specifications on the fence. So we're proposing to put a 6-foot high board on batten wooden fence. Here's a picture of it. And so I guess that's pretty straightforward. And then lastly, asked for missing details, product sheets, landscape plans. So everything I'm about to show you, including landscape plans, were all submitted as part of the original submission. Our specification shows Pella traditional windows. They are very, very close specs to what's existing. The windows that are there now are from a range of 60 years and have been replaced over time. So I think there's only 1 or 2 original windows left, but that's a template we took to do the replacement windows for the existing to be restored, and also for the addition in the back. So here's a spec of that. Here's a more detailed spec of the mullions for the Pella traditional windows. There's 2 front doors that come into the existing home. So again, they've been replaced over the years a couple times. So we took what we felt was the most traditional style door, and these are the doors that we're going to replicate. They're a little bit different size because we're going to match what's currently there.
Daniel,
Yes.
I just want to clarify that that comment wasn't that you were missing anything, but if for some reason the commission had asked for something different that would require a new product sheet or detail,
Oh, I
that
see.
they would like for them to be part of the recommendation to the Board of Jurisdiction, not that you left anything out.
I got it. Thank you, Elizabeth. And there's also 2 glass doors that are on the existing home. Currently, they're fixed doors because that room is being used as a bedroom. That's also our intention, is to leave them as fixed doors, but to match the grille pattern, the spacing, the door, to get it as close to original as possible. And they're very, very close. And here's just an example of one of the windows, one of the sizes that's there. I showed you more detailed specifications on earlier slides. And a grill profile, again, a more detailed spec. And again, this was submitted with our original application. So, you know, I went through all the comments and recommendations. I think I've addressed them. We believe that by restoring this home, we're meeting the criteria here to be approved. Our addition in the back is compliant, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I just want to know, do you have other members of your team that want to speak, or do you want to hand it over back to the commission?
It's just me and Chris on the call here.
Okay. And do you want to go back to the regular screen?
Sure.
Or does anyone have questions where they want to see slides, or?
If we could leave them up, it might save a minute.
Okay, all right. So commission members, are there certain slides you want to revisit? I can't really see anybody, so I don't know if anyone has questions or not.
I'm talking, but I was muted. I'm
Oh.
sorry. Yeah. He was talking about adding on. A lot of our homes were added on because when families came from the South, they had to have places to stay. So a lot of our homes were rooming houses. So that's why a lot of houses were added on. And the side, when you come in the front door, there's a door on the side where the window is, where that's where Mrs. Taylor had her beauty salon.
I see.
So, yeah, and also it was 1840 when you said that the house was built. Also, we're celebrating 180 years of our church. So there were probably a lot of people from our church who were in that house before the church was built. when they came from Nassau. I'm just giving you a little bit of history. Also, before that, it was Paul Roberson's cousin who had a grocery store in that house before Mrs. Taylor moved in. So I just wanted to let you know that the reason these houses were added on to was because it was a purpose. And
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Are there
So
other
that-
slides?
I'm glad you're keeping the frontage and not knocking it down.
Right, and that's our proposal. The most original part of the structure to restore and keep and bring it back to life.
Yeah, I too appreciate that.
I don't know that the architects and engineers actually saw, but that addition in the back, there's a folding rule that stuck into the foundation, went right underneath the foundation all the way through to support the structural engineer's assertion that the addition at the back was not built with the same care perhaps as the 1840 construction.
Thank you. So are there other questions or are we ready for public comment?
Trying to figure out how to get everybody back on my screen.
Oh yeah, well, you have to wait for Daniel to close it out, but are there slides you want to see?
No, mine just says Zoom.
Okay, so Daniel, I guess we don't need to see the slides right now.
But
So
mine's saying you are viewing Endersby screen. So I don't think I'm even on anymore.
Oh, re-
I'm on, but I just says Zoom.
Yeah, it says Zoom in big letters.
Yeah.
That's not me.
oh, so somebody is sharing their screen.
It's Elric.
Okay, Alric, do you know how to not share your screen?
I'm going to take stop share. How's that?
Oh yeah, there we go. There you go. Thank you, yay.
I have one
All right,
comment before,
so,
which is that I think a lot of the images were sort of foreshortened, so they were too vertical and not horizontal. And actually, the proportions are better than what we saw.
I agree.
anyway, I think, I mean, I'm certainly appreciative of saving the front of the building and keeping the streetscape. I think that's what we said at concept review, and I still feel that way. So and the presentation was really detailed and very, very helpful. So thank you.
I have a question about, maybe this is for Elizabeth or Ed. There's no variance needed to make this into a 3-family unit that's as of right in this neighborhood?
Right. According to the
Okay.
engineering and zoning report, there is no variance required.
Okay, all right. That's what I figured, but I too agree that I think it's great to preserve the original house on the front. It preserves the streetscape, and I think the materials and the surfaces that are being selected are fine. The color, kind of an olive green, it kind of is a little reminiscent of the green that's there now. So there's some variety, and I appreciate the study that was done on the roof heights, showing that it's pretty close to what the average is, although maybe a bit on the high side. I think it will be hidden a bit by the houses on either side, and so I start video. Okay, I think that's acceptable. I hear some noise in the background. I'm going to mute myself.
And now I go mute. Yes, but I see the top of these. Okay, now it's the on. Okay, now.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of background noise too.
Shirley, can you mute? I don't know if it's at your house, but
I see almost 10.
Okay, I muted her, but I don't think it's her.
Now, what did you bring
Okay.
Oh, you have a nice blanket on.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. Anyway, are there members of the public that would like to speak?
Yes, there is someone who would like to, they've got their hand up.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring him over. Let's see. Promote to panelist. Yearney?
That was was that the newborn?
Okay,
I wonder where we're getting this feedback.
I don't know.
There are several members who are unmuted. Robert, Tom, Elric, any of those should be muted.
Okay, Madam Chair, we have one
Yeah.
person from the public who is here.
Okay. So let's have Erlene.
Yes.
Ed, do you want to swear in Erlene?
Yes,
is Ed
Erlene,
here?
I'm the lawyer. Do you swear the testimony you're going to give is the truth?
Okay.
Go right ahead.
I'm not commenting on what was just presented, but the reason why I am here is about a neighboring property, which is the Paul Robeson house. And I know
Erlene?
that the-
Oh,
and should I
Erlene?
wait that for later?
Yeah, we have a public comment section not pertaining to this application, so.
Okay, I'm not here about this application.
Oh, okay. Then maybe we'll wait until the other part to talk about your issue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Can I follow up on Celia's comment?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was being heard. In terms of the height, I'm interested in it seems very vertical to me, and I realize that those images were skewed a bit. What are the ceiling heights on the original part of the house and the ceiling heights on the addition?
So the ceiling heights on the existing, on the second floor are 6'11", and on the first floor is 7.5 feet.
Okay, I mean, I live with my second floor is 6'4", but anyway, and the grade level, the level of the first floor on the back addition, is that the same as the original house, or is it possible that it could be lowered slightly because the grade begins to fall off toward the rear of the lot?
You know, I would have to check with my engineer since there's so many other restricting factors, including stormwater and storm management. But our anticipation is to leave it at the same grade that it's at right now, or very close to it. There's also municipal ordinance that doesn't allow you to alter the grade more than, I believe, 1 foot or so.
That's more than 1 foot, but if it was lowered even 10 inches or something like that, and the ceiling heights were adjusted slightly, I think you can get the bulk of that back section to be less prominent, and I think that would help.
Looking at the plans, it looks as if the floor level is actually lower in the rear.
Good.
Already.
Yeah, it is, because the grade drops off as you go towards the rear.
Yeah, so that it already has been lowered.
It has, and you know, I would certainly explore that option as I get further along in the more kind of technical work to see if I could drop it even further. But even as it stands right now, from a sightline perspective, it's you know, there's nothing that stands out about it specifically, and it's not a lot higher than the average of the rest. So my anticipation was that at worst case, this is where it would be, and if I'm able to drop it lower, again, in Princeton, with the high water levels, and that's another limiting factor, but I would certainly try to do that. My presentation was just to show that the way it's proposed right now, even right at the moment, it's not a real detracting factor.
But it's not as if there are any steps between the front and back units, so that it really is, it's almost like an independent building. But the other I noticed, and again, it could be the fact that the angles were off a bit on the images. It looks to me like the roof pitch in the back is steeper than the front. And if it was lower just enough to be the same as that in the front, I think, again, it would feel complimentary rather than, you know, just a tail wagging the dog back there. What else do I have here? Oh, the front door. I think that in most cases, if you have glass in a front door like that, the upper section would be less than half the height of the door itself, and I think that would feel more residential if the length of the panes was foreshortened a bit. But again, I'll echo what's been said before. You've appeared before us before. I sense that we've all learned a bit from each other, and I'm very appreciative of all the background work you did in submitting this. You've obviously listened to some of our comments before and addressed them, and I think we all appreciate that.
Right. Does anyone else have questions for Daniel? Robert?
I think there is a very slight difference in the roof pitch, but I just checked it out with a long parallel bar, and at most it could bring it down 2 inches by changing the pitch to be exactly the same. Really isn't going to matter very much. I think that given the fact that it's set back from a perspective and everything as one views it, I don't think it's a serious problem. As much as I agree with Ulrich, it would be better if it were lower, but I don't think it's really a problem.
The other question I have was whether or not it's hipped in the front, which I appreciate. Is there any reason why it shouldn't be hipped in the back as well, just so that the volume feels somewhat reduced?
That's a good point.
Tom's trying to talk.
Oh,
Tom, you have to
Tom, you're
unmute
mute.
yourself.
You're mute.
Yeah, sorry. When David made that suggestion, I did mute myself. Elric, on the plans, the stairs that lead to the attic are right where that hip would cut into headroom. So that would be difficult, I know.
Yeah,
I don't have that in front of me.
that's right.
But
Well,
on another issue, the last time we looked at a house in this district, there were some horizontal banding that was being done on the end of the house that we objected to. And looking at the rear elevation here, as well as the sides, there are 2 horizontal banding treatments that one might object to, or maybe several might object to. The simple vernacular styles and detailing that is prevalent in the district, I won't say conflicts with these, but these conflict with what we see typically in the district.
Tom, I will admit to you with some embarrassment as a non-architect that I had recommended that banding to tie it into the roof of the porch of the house in the front. So I bet Daniel would be willing to take them off because his dopey lawyer suggested them.
Not that it's terribly unusual, but I remember a university president doing something similar.
I don't think
I'm not sure the effect was any better.
Yeah, but if nobody cares, I'm sure they could be taken off.
I would agree with Tom. I think they should be taken off. And the other thing I wonder about is whether those 2 little roofs over the 2 doors in the back couldn't be made into a single one. Would sort of simplify it and not.
Hey, Daniel, can you trade that off, do away with the banding and have one roof?
Oh, I'll leave it up to you experts. I'm okay.
I mean, it's being on the side and so on, I could certainly accept it within the two individual ones, but I think it would be also probably just as easy, if not easier, to construct that way.
Fine with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Robert. I think it would be a cleaner look than to have the two little separate ones. And yeah, I think to be consistent, I think the last project we saw similar to this, we did not agree with the banding. So I think we should be consistent there.
Again, okay with me, not a problem. I just take them off.
Okay. Are there more people from the public, Elizabeth?
Yes,
It-
I'll bring them. I believe that Yaina has her hand up, so I will promote her.
Okay.
It also looked like Brenna had her hand up from my
Oh.
perspective.
Oh. She just took it down.
I can wait as long as I can talk at some point.
Oh,
Do you want me to speak now?
yes. Yeah.
Yaina, Ed Schmier, do you testify everything you say is going to be truthful?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. This is the first time that I've attended a meeting on this project and this proposal. I'd heard much about it, I guess in the day when it was being proposed to demolish the house. So it's good news that the front street-facing portion of the house is being preserved. I do have questions, however, about the arrangement of the two additional units and the parking requirement that totally destroys, the site. And I'm wondering whether historic preservation could, the commission, actually find a way that some of those parking spaces be treated differently in order to expand and to make less prominent, expand the open space and potential green space, and but add to the permeability, of course, through either pavers, the grass that grows through it, but reduces the parking space, the parking lot effect. Okay. I mean, it's amazing that adding 2 units has now created this need for a parking lot, and the whole extent of the driveway, which of course cars have been stacked for the single family house, now has to move into a parking lot. It's typical of the neighborhood on sites where there isn't a full parking space on either side that driveways are shared. And while it may be a little difficult for 3 to share, even though you have the length, it would seem that there could be some way of sort of minimizing that effect of a parking lot in the middle of the residential neighborhood. Another thing that has to do with sort of the character of the 2 additional units that are entering from the side. Something that the neighborhood has really has a disdain for when there doesn't provide an opportunity for each unit to have some forward-facing access and or social character. There is a wraparound porch, and I'm wondering why hadn't at least 1 unit, possibly 2, enter from the side porch, going straight to the back, and let that be the entry to the units. Separate door is not necessary to have. Proximity to parking space is sort of, it can work 2 ways. There could be a back entry or another mode of access, but it's sort of that front entry is very important. This is not Berrien Court, where there are houses, many houses down the pedestrian way. It is actually a house on a lot, and these two entrances are entering off of a driveway. I mean, it's not really that pleasant. I also have a question about the height of the building, why it needs to be 29 feet. And while the footprint, or at least the outside walls seem to be 25 or 27 feet, if there was a different roof angle, I agree with one of the commenters, one of the commissioners, that if it was a hip roof, that may be a different, you'd have a different appearance. And it appears from the only floor plan that I have that both of the stairs, both on the first and second floor, are, there's an upstairs notation, okay, and a downstairs. So it's a little confusing in terms of that floor plan, what that's meant to reflect. Does the upper unit have a loft that's going into that roof? And does the first floor unit have access to a full basement? Question there. Are these units rental or are they condominiums? And if the latter, are they permitted to expand into those spaces, attic and basement, to create larger units or some other type of unit? And on the attempt to minimize the scale of the rear addition, the way in which it is, projecting into the driveway has already set up a challenge instead of stepping back. And then the color theory around the lighter color, I believe Daniel said, of the rear and the front house being darker, it's sort of just the reverse. If you don't want the larger item to be prominent, it's usually that it is more demure and it has more of the shading, if not from trees, in terms of color, and the forward facing one would be lighter. That's the extent of my comments. Thank you.
Daniel, did you want to address any of those?
Well, yeah, so thank you for your comments. I guess I'll go from first to last. The first comment was about having an additional entrance from the kind of existing building. The reason that we didn't propose that was our intention was to leave the proposed building as close to what's existing as possible. And by adding in a feature like that, we thought that there would be enough changing to the front, adding a separate stair in, and having one of those doors being functional where you would be taking away from the existing structure. In addition, what's left from that first unit, it's a pretty small unit. So now to have a corridor and access to get in the back, that unit gets even smaller. Probably if you would take that out, less than 1,000 square feet. So,
what I meant, if you can still hear me, I was saying access, flip the floor plan of the two additional units where you have the bedrooms towards the front and the public spaces at the rear, that you're entering from that side porch straight back.
Right.
Okay. All right. So it wasn't going into the floor plan of the existing house.
Right. I understand. So the way it was designed was so that the most forward part of the addition has this hip roof and the stairs in the rear. So to keep that forward part of the addition as close to the existing height structure as possible, and to flip it and then have the stairs there would mean that would get even more elevated. So our main concern was with massing and height and preserving the front. I hope that answers your question in regards to that. You know, with parking and the parking lot, I'm not opposed to what you're saying at all. Unfortunately, that's the municipal ordinance. They want 1.5 spaces per unit. So that's what we designed so that there doesn't trigger a variance condition. I don't know if there's a whole lot I can specifically do about that without addressing the municipal ordinances in regard to parking. You know, I'm sympathetic with what you're saying. I'm not sure a way around that. We limited the parking as tight as possible. You know, we put in this open space component, and you know, I didn't want to flip the open space and parking lot because that would create even more impervious coverage, more water runoff. Maybe not so much an issue of convenience, but I'm already up against impervious. If I extend that driveway to go to the rear, for the parking to be in the rear, again, it would trigger a variance. So I have a lot of limiting conditions here that I have to meet. So I kind of just did that.
No, my suggestion was actually that the parking spaces towards the rear be treated differently so that there would be less of an impact of it appearing to be a parking lot. While you could still park, you know, the open paver kind of thing.
Yeah, you know, I think that with the kind of like extensive landscape buffering we're doing from the landscape plan and a lot of replacement trees, I think we're going to be able to buffer this nicely away from neighbors. And so it's not going to be like really impactful. Plus, it does back up to a municipal parking lot. So, yeah, so I think we'll be able to find a creative way to it's an eyesore on that street or in the community. And 3-family only is permitted in this zone. So no intention to make any more families. I got to tell you the truth. I'm not sure if they're rent or sale. My anticipation is that they're going to be rentals. But again, I can't commit right now one way or another. But my anticipation is they are going to be rentals. And with the colors, I'm okay with to swap them. Again, I leave it up to the experts of the board to tell me what they think. My architect's opinion was that if you have a lighter color in the back, a more earthy tone, it's more muted from the front, and with a darker color that will stand out more. If the board advises me to, if HPC advises me to swap them, I'm happy to do it. When it comes to stuff like that, I'm very flexible. So again, same thing with the roof coming along the side or making the roof over the 2 exterior doors 1 or 2. I'm flexible. So you guys tell me what you want, and we can accommodate, I'm sure.
All right, thank you. Brenna has a question, and then Robert after Brenna.
So I had 2 questions. One, Yana kind of addressed about the parking lot. I was just, I don't know from looking at the plan spatially whether it would make a difference, but if the spaces, instead of pointing toward and away from the house, were perpendicular to the length of the house, if that would actually make it all kind of sit back there more nicely. I don't know. And then my other question was just about the front view, the way that the addition kind of peers out from the side of the house behind the wraparound porch. I don't know how others feel about that. To me, it almost, in some of these drawings, it almost looks like the addition is kind of looming over the original structure a little bit or menacing it slightly. So I don't know if that's, if I'm the only one sort of seeing that as disturbing, but for me, I'm finding the way that it juts out to the side a little bit odd.
Just by way of a reminder, the existing house sits in the side yard setback, and you can see the setback line on the drawing. The addition honors the setback line, which is why it's offset from the existing home.
Yeah, and so yes, Chris, exactly. And then with the parking arrangement, me and my engineer worked really diligently on making this parking area as small as possible, and to do the spaces perpendicular, meaning the backup aisle for cars to back up and then leave. I would actually expand the parking lot. So we put a lot of time into this parking lot. We made it, and I don't want to call it a parking lot. It's 5 parking spaces, but the parking area, we spent a lot of time on how to consolidate it so that it's functional, but it doesn't take up too much room. And like Chris said, I have to conform with zoning on the addition in the back. So that's the reason that it juts out, but it doesn't go past the porch. So I think that it'll be a little bit more seamless look when it's finished.
Robert?
But one thing that could be done, although I do think that the fencing and so on protects it, buffers it from the neighbors and to a fairly large extent. But if there were grass pavers, it would be more attractive for the people who actually live there. And
Daniel has put grass pavers in on Moore Street and put grass pavers in on Witherspoon Street. Daniel, what's your take on grass pavers?
They're terrible. I'll tell you why. They're not, as soon as a car comes up on top of them, all the grass turns brown. All it looks is like an extension of a driveway, but just in pavers. So the idea is good, but the heat from the car and people pulling in and out of it all the time kills all the grass. In addition to that, if they're going to be rentals, I can maintain it. I have the crew to do that and the know-how. If they're condominiumized and sold, then it's up to homeowners to mutually be able to maintain that. They usually don't know how and don't even want to, and it ends up just being pavers next to driveway, and so kind of the same. I haven't had great experience with them. If it's a deal breaker, we've done them. We can do them on 2 of the spots when we can figure out where that goes. But again, I haven't had great experience with them.
well, from a historic preservation point of view, it's really not visible from the street.
Right.
So I would not insist upon that. I just mentioned that as something that might be more attractive for the people who actually live there. And my experience has been that variable on the grass pavers, but there are a number that have worked. And but the other question concerned the roof, and Elric had mentioned changing the roof shape in the back. And as Tom pointed out, that is a problem for the stair. But the access to the attic, does it have to be a stair or could it be a trap door? And because basically it's only storage presumably up there.
Yes, but I would prefer.
I know it's much more convenient to have a stair. There's no question about it.
An attic stair, as you guys know, it doesn't really allow you to do any type of real storage. And in these kind of smaller units, it's a premium to be able to have somewhere to store your items.
Yeah. And I agree.
And I think it will be better that instead of storing stuff, for example, for all outside around the unit, that they have somewhere to store inside the unit. Same thing with the basement for the first floor unit, storage, attic for the second story unit, storage. So that was the intent. And our idea was that in the rear, it would be the least impactful towards the streetscape.
All right, Elric, did you have a question?
I have some comments. I wasn't aware because I wasn't aware that in the past there have been cars parked behind each other in previous conditions. What I was looking at before was whether or not it's possible to put 2 cars back to each other, behind each other, but to the other side of the house, so that one of the 2 apartments would actually be accessed from that side. The original house would be accessed from the street, and the third from the driveway. So each would feel like it had some of its own character. And that would reduce it to just 3 parking spaces in the back, which feels more domestic.
Elric, the other side of the house encroaches already into the 15-foot side yard.
Yeah, so there's no location for a drive aisle there to meet the engineering and setback specifications. So we did look at that, but that would mean now disrupting the existing structure, which was our primary concern, was to restore it and keep it and not touch it at all. So that's why it was designed this way.
And are you, I mean, I appreciate Brenna's comment, because it looked to me like if the addition was pushed back to the eastern gable of the original house, I know you'd have to get a variance, but do you think that would be denied if it created an open space there?
I got to tell you, between that, you guys are really, really busy and backloaded with applications, plus COVID. We've been on this application for over a year, and actually more from our first concept meeting. I really don't want to go in front of zoning. I have a hard time believing that they're going to say yes when we have a pretty good proposal now that is conforming. So I would prefer not to go down that road. Actually, I would insist on it.
Tom, you have a question?
Well, on procedures, and maybe Chris can answer this. You are going to have to go before the planning board, yes?
This isn't characterized as a minor, and you're stepping into the shoes of Sprab in the way that they did minors.
Right.
The way this works, as I understand it, subject to Ed's confirmation, is that we give a notice hereafter saying that if you go ahead, that the commission approved the application, and if someone has an objection to it, they can take an appeal to the planning board. Or in this, I've recently been told that they prefer to send these to the zoning board, which confuses me since your regulations say planning board. But the point is, it's a minor and it doesn't go anywhere but here.
So do we have the ability to grant variances?
Negative.
No.
The other point about the paint, I agree with that. You think about, traditionally a house would be painted white and the outbuildings behind it would be painted the darker color. And I think that that's not a bad idea in this instance.
The idea we had was to keep the visual image of the existing green. I heard some support for that.
Either way, to me, seems good. Elizabeth, do we have more people from the public?
Let me look.
Thank you.
And Chris, I just, unfortunately, there's no one here for me to ask. I actually thought that it was going to the planning board, but you might be right. I mean, that was my understanding, that I know it's a minor, but sometimes they will hear them. But I think we'd have to have confirmation later, but unless you heard otherwise.
No, it's a minor. And I guess the only question I have, even for my notice, and I'll talk to Ed about this, if there's an appeal taken from your action, would the site plan be reviewed by the zoning board? Because it's decided recently that that's where appeals from your commission would go. So I'll take that up with Ed, but it's a minor, and we're going to notice it as a minor if you're inclined to approve it tonight.
Madam Chair, there is no other person in the public who have their hand up.
Okay. Yes, Tom.
To elaborate, if that's a proper word, on what Brenna was asking, I also feel that the addition does tower, if that's the right word, over the front structure, and my solution for part of that would be to try to put a cross gable roof connecting the two structures rather than do the hip roof, which I think imposes, a greater bulk on that front structure. Because you have the attic in that roof, it seems to me that there should be flexibility in how that space is covered. and a gable roof, a cross gable to the front structure could be on a lower slope and hidden by the front structure, I believe. That's how I was thinking that this sort of imposition of the rear structure, the new structure on the existing, might be ameliorated. But again, that it would need to be looked at.
We could commit to reviewing that as an alternative to what's been shown to you, and have the architect see whether a cross gable to connect with the front of the house could be considered.
Okay.
Let's see, I know Shirley, was it Shirley? Did you have to go at a certain time, or? Anyway, I just wanted to see if there were other. Okay, if there's other questions or comments, or if anyone has a motion or how to move forward.
I don't think changing the gable is going to make it any less prominent. I really don't.
Nor do I, but we said we'd look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that preserving the existing house is something that we spoke about extensively in the concept review. And I do think there's a large commitment in that endeavor because the existing house is not in good condition. So there is also a need for housing of a certain size that isn't like, you know, that's more in an affordable range. So I think we're not only preserving the streetscape, but we're adding to a type of housing stock that it really is in demand in this area. So for those reasons, I feel favorably about the addition.
It's in demand, which is right, but it's not in demand that we can afford. You know, when you talk about,
well, I mean, it's more affordable. It's more affordable than a single family house with its own yard.
That is true, but what I'm saying is those of us who grew up in this neighborhood and want to come back can't afford to be in those houses because they're too expensive. So there'll be a
but that's true kind of all over New Jersey. I mean, New Jersey's become very expensive.
But it also puts us out.
Well, the existing home is unsafe, so it's got to be, it's at an enormous expense. It has to be rebuilt and it'll be available as a living unit.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point, in most cases, we devote an ed to help us to define various contentious issues and be resolved perhaps administratively. With those provisions, it seems to me like we should come up with a consensus for approval.
Okay, yeah, Robert?
Yeah, I think as far as the color is concerned, I think normally I would agree that the lighter color should be in front. But given the fact that the actual color that had been there for a long time was this darker color, I think that does make sense in this one case. Not that I'm particularly fond of the green to begin with, but that's an aesthetic thing, not a historic thing. I think from a historic point of view, it does make sense. And I would move to approve this with the exception of that band of little roof that goes around the back addition and combining the two roofs into one over the doors. I think that's, I also would wonder whether perhaps we shouldn't investigate the landscaping a bit further with a subcommittee, because I'm not sure that that's totally flushed out and in the best way.
Right. Okay. Well, we have a motion. Is there a second to the motion? Yes, Tom?
Before we second, can I ask another question?
Yeah.
As Robert suggested, the grass pavers, I'm thinking that in the last review we did on a multifamily house, some of the parking was banked, and wondered if there's an opportunity here. No?
Technically, I mean, I think banking's wonderful, but Princeton doesn't permit it. You have to have a space and a half for each unit, period.
But it might be that two of them could be those two in the back could be grass pavers.
Well, the grass pavers are problematic. If that's, as Daniel said, if it's a deal breaker, I'll put them in. But he's had bad luck. He's done it for the planning board thought it was appealing, and he put them in and they don't work. The hot automobile gets on top and the grass turns brown.
Chris, can I jump in for 1 second here? So there was a mention of subcommittee, and specifically in regards to landscape review. I mean, a very detailed landscape plan was submitted. There's part of me even being able to get a building permit or getting a tree removal permit is working with the arborist, who is going to specifically tell me, hey, a white ash we want out of here, and hey, this tree we'd like you to save, and here's where we like replace, this is the type of species of replacements we'd like to put. Is that necessary to go to the subcommittee?
Given Elizabeth's particular talent and the extensive comments in her memo, if she were to work with the arborist, I'm sure that would be fine.
That's also a possibility, but I think one of the things is I think the ash tree probably will have to go. And so several things will have to go, and therefore there will be changes that are required in the plan, and that's why I suggested.
Right. So, but you have an arborist, and Elizabeth, your staff is quite talented. I think we could agree to an administrative review with her and the arborist, and if they can't agree on what should be done, we'd come back to you. But that seems unusual, since none of us are really knowledgeable about trees as much as the arborist or Elizabeth.
I could agree with that.
Great, thanks.
That's true. Elizabeth is an expert.
Multi-talented.
Well, what I would say, it's administrative review, which means
Right.
that it's Elizabeth and the chair.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so is there a second to Robert's motion?
I second.
Oh, thanks, Elric. All right. Elizabeth, do you want to do the vote?
Sure. Let's see what we have here. Ms. Capozzoli?
Yes.
Mr. Endersby?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Satterfield?
Yes.
Mr. Shaskin?
Yes.
Mr. Von Zumbush?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I could just clarify a few things on this motion. There were a
Yes.
few things that staff had recommended. Are those things that the commission would like incorporated into there or not? I just would like some clarification.
We agree with all of them. All the staff reports can be attached. We agree to all the conditions.
Okay, except for the one which had to do with, or I guess you said that you were going to reinvestigate the one about the green garden, right?
Dry wells, that they wanted us to go back to the dry wells instead of the rain garden, but whatever they can agree to is one of the two is fine with us.
Okay, and the other comment, I think there was something about the dumpsters that I had in my report. Is that something that you will work with as far as like?
He was going to move them. You wanted them moved away to the back by the turnaround. I think Daniel said he would do that.
And if the commission was okay with that, I didn't hear any comments. I just wanted to
Yes,
make sure
yes.
they agree.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
Very
we
good.
agree.
thank you.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify that one point because there was also talk about moving the light pole. And that light pole is in the same location as the trash enclosure. So I
Would
want to
be,
make sure
if it was
that
moved.
somebody knows which direction the light pole is moving. And
So talking to my civil engineer, he said there's two ways to address it. One is to move the light pole along with the trash enclosure, which will also pull the light spillage away from the neighbors, or alternatively, to put this kind of protective shield on it to limit the light spillage. So I think through one course or another, we can address it.
Okay. So do you want to work with that administratively
That
as
should
well?
be done administratively.
Okay.
Great,
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Right now, it currently meets the standards of the ordinance, but we'll tighten it up according to HPC's comments.
Daniel, I think one of the comments was actually from zoning on that spillage.
Yeah.
So that's why it came up.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I mean, we're going to obviously comply with all that. And so my engineer assured me there's multiple ways to address that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And just- all right.
2 years later, we got the unanimous approval. So thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you. All right, be well.
thank you. All right, we're moving on to a concept review for Harrison Street. It's 3537 South Harrison Street.
Julie, I'm going to say goodnight.
Thanks, Ed.
Oh, thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed, so much.
Ed.
Thank you. We got an 11 by 17 elevation, one sheet. So there's no report, but Elizabeth, maybe you,
Yes.
let's
So
see, so-
I just promoted Brooke Brown, who's the applicant, into a
Great.
panelist.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Hi. Sorry, I'm driving, so I can't.
Oh
show
my gosh.
face, but I have a person
Hold on,
going
Brooke.
to JFK.
Okay, hold on, Brooke. I'm just going to do a little preview for the commission. So if the commission recalls, Ms. Brown had come in June 1st, 2020 on the special meeting where she came in for a concept review at that time. So she has heard the comments that the commission has made, and she would like to have another concept review for a schematic for the new building to just get some feedback before she goes into hardline design. And I could pull that up on the screen if the commission wants to see that.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Okay. So I'm going to pull it up while Brooke talks if she wants to.
So this house I did previously. It's a small-ish house that I think would fit nicely on this particular block. So the house is 27 feet wide. The house next to it, the existing historical house, is 28 feet wide. This house is 40 feet deep. The existing house is 48 feet deep. And the height shown on that drawing is 30 feet high. The existing house, I do not have the exact, but I'm going to make a little bit of a guess of 26 feet high. So I gather from the comments that I've heard last time and now in the Barsky presentation that height is a big issue in historic districts.
Mhm.
Correct?
Yes. Yes, that's
Okay.
true.
So the last time I came to you, I had a higher drawing that you didn't like at all. So I showed it connected on a second floor and cars driving underneath that. But I realized that probably a better connection to avoid any variances would be in the back. And it could be through a room or a garage. Now, the existing driveway is on the right side of the property, which could be left, or there's enough room to do a driveway between the two structures and then connect them in the rear through a garage. And I kind of wanted to see what you all think and envision before
We're not seeing your drawing yet, Brooke, so Elizabeth's working on that.
And I gave a copy of the survey so that you can see where the existing house sits.
Well, so we'll see if we can get that facade first.
Here it is.
Yep.
Okay.
And the one thing I would like to say is you see a bump out in the front of this house. I would not do that bump out in the front of a house on Harrison. If I did a bump out, I would want it in the rear.
That's the metal roof that's showing the.
No, the little thing on the left side, the little bump
The dormer.
out on the left side of the, yeah, the dormer, yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. No dormer, okay.
I see. Well, do any commissioners have comments on the elevation?
I certainly would prefer not to see the dormer as well.
Right.
Shed roof dormers really don't fit in very well. Many cases.
So if certainly would take a minute to look at this, and then if Elizabeth can work her magic one last time to show us the survey drawing or the site plan, it's want to make clear to you the intent.
My comment is on the windows. I think that there are three different configurations there. They don't work well together.
Size.
They would be longer on the first floor than the second, but instead of being elongated 6/6 lights, they would be the same lights, but it would be 9/6.
Okay, got
And
it.
they also need shutters, I think.
Well, the problem with that is that they're ganged, and therefore they become decorative rather than functional.
So the recommendation is not to have shutters.
No shutters.
Okay. But the lights will if Elric, we can get that in the notes about what you want for the lights.
Yes, I'd like to see if you can retain the ones on the second floor as 6/6. On the first floor, I'd make them 9/6 so that the panes are the same size. It's the number of panes that changes. And some accommodation on the third floor, whether it's a 9-light sash or whether it's, but it just, they're, to me, they're jarring as they are. And I think the cross gable on the porch is just badly detailed at the where the barge boards come down. The same thing is true up above. It can be done more subtly than that and be more effective if it's to be retained at all.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
sure.
Chris, are we 2 houses on one lot?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to see it in plan. If everybody's done the elevation, we can go to the plan.
The only other plan I have is the survey plan.
Yeah, that's it. The survey
Is that what
plan.
it is?
Yep,
Okay,
yes,
let me
ma'am.
see if
Yep.
I can get that. Hold on.
To just kick it off, Tom, this is the R2 zone where two-family homes are permitted.
R3.
Yeah, I apologize. Where two-family homes are permitted. So the idea is, as Brooke told you, what you see here is the existing home, which sits on the north side of the lot. And the idea would be to place this other structure to the south side of that on the more of the open space, and to connect the two in the back, creating sort of a U-shaped structure. So the back of the lot would be parking and or living space, which connected the two buildings.
What is the purpose of having a connection at all?
It makes it into a two-family dwelling. You cannot have two separate homes on one lot, but you can have a two-family dwelling.
Can you see this on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
I can try to make it a little bit larger.
Thanks
With
for
the
that.
with the recent introduction of accessory dwellings, I know there's a quite limited square footage involved, but if it makes sense, is David still with us?
I am.
What are the possibilities of variances or variations or whatever's required to do something like they're proposing?
We're just by way of a reminder, it's the one is to be 1/4 the size of the other. So it's really a material difference between having two homes that are similar in size.
Well, that it's either 800 square feet or 25%, whichever is greater. So I don't know.
Right, but even at 25%, if that was the greater, I mean, these are small homes, but either one, it's quite a disparity between the two homes. And it's where, in a zone where two-family homes are permitted, the concept here, and Brooke could go on at great length, but this used to be two lots, two building lots. The open space to the south was a separate building lot. They are non-conforming as to size, and so they're merged by operation of law. They've become one building lot. But the idea here is that the pattern on the street is for smaller lots side by side. And it's to get a variance to have a small lot there, it just didn't seem viable. A reasonable alternative is to attach the homes and have a two-family home.
And to give you some perspective, right around the corner on Nassau Street, in the same historical zone, Jugtown, the same zoning district, I own a duplex that the lot size is 4950. This lot size is almost 11,000 square feet. So a conforming size is 10,000 in the R3 borough. And like I said, around the corner, I have a duplex that is non-conforming on a 4950 square foot lot. And apparently it was like that for many years. I mean, since the 1800s for sure.
So the idea from the street would be visually to have two facades. I think Brooke made the point that the idea is to make them visually quite similar. Well, there are different styles, but the size and the height and the width are intended to be similar. And the attachment would be well to the rear, so it wouldn't be so visible from Harrison Street.
Are there any fire regulations that would dictate the height, particularly, and width of that passage?
Sure, there are. I mean, all duplexes have issues at the attachment.
But I guess
sure.
This is a second-story connection.
No, at grade and maybe at second story as well, but wherever the attachment, first only.
Sorry, I thought I misunderstood.
Yeah,
I would say, excuse me, I would say a first story connection based on what you said previously in terms of not wanting to see the connection. And by doing a one-story connection in the rear, the house currently has a 6-foot fence in the front. So if the driveway was not moved to between the houses, that 6-foot fence, which stands up a little bit, it would be pretty difficult to see from the street unless you were really far away that there is any type of a connection.
I think that Elric brought up some really great points on the windows of the elevation you're showing us.
Yes, and I, just to stop you for a sec, it doesn't matter to me what the window, you know, those that are shown, I'm not married to that style at all. So whatever you think would work best, I would be more than happy to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll come back to us with a plan that actually shows the connection?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I would agree with Elric also to look at the small roof over the front door, that maybe you look in the neighborhood and see other types of, you know, styles that might look less contemporary.
Okay.
Good idea. Good idea.
I don't think it's a question of being contemporary. It's just very awkward. Doesn't really fit.
Okay.
Doesn't really
We'll
look contemporary.
We'll look for examples around the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm impressed that the slope matches the roof slope. Most of them don't, but that's just me.
Right, maybe something simpler. And are there other comments?
I guess another question for Chris. Seems to me the last time we talked about this, there was a neighbor that had objections. Has that neighbor now been satisfied that this is a good way to proceed? Or
We thought we'd come to you first. I think the idea of attaching it to the reducing the scale of this one, and those people, the Wampolds live to the left of the house you're looking at here. Yeah. So if you are inclined to, we'll take your recommendations, modify the look, draw it in plan, and then show it to them. That's our intention. And then come back to you.
Okay, that sounds good, to talk to the neighbors if possible.
Yeah.
I know they have a lot of concerns.
But the neighbor, I want to be clear, what the neighbor said during the last meeting had to do with, he said, A, the lots were combined with the previous owner, which is not true. They were separate lots when I purchased them. I gave Elizabeth a copy of the deed. He also said the tax bill was one, which was not true. I also gave Elizabeth a copy. He also said that the deed said that the lot could never be built on. Untrue. You have a copy of the deed. And he said, going back to 2 owners ago, and we emailed Derek, who gave us 70 pages of zoning information, which clearly showed that 2 owners ago, the owner had every intention on preserving the second lot as a building lot. There was a time that he had a flat in the back of the house in which he needed part of that lot to satisfy the flat requirement, which was 1.25.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're going to drive off the road with all this. But just to be precise, our goal is to produce a conforming house. Our goal is to share that conforming design with the neighbor. And then if they make some recommendations that we can live with, we'll deal with that, and then we'll come back to you. Brooke has obviously exercised about it's not relevant to what you're looking at, what you're doing. We're going to conform to the zoning. We have looked at all this background material. Our goal is to build a conforming home.
All right. Well, thank you. I think just, you know, as far as houses in historic districts, you know, we tend to appreciate simple rather than complex, and you know, typical materials and proportions that are harmonious with the rest of the neighborhood.
We wrote that down.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments?
See you next time.
Thanks, Elric.
I think we've
Okay.
seen enough. It
Okay.
can't go any further without a further plan and so on at this point.
Right,
really.
right.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Here.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We're on to our the proposed guidelines for the installation of solar panels. Did everyone get a chance to read that? I think we sent it around a while ago, but I thought what I liked about it is that it preserves the flexibility in approach. Like, it doesn't dictate solar panels are always good here or not good here. And then they reference the Secretary of the Interior standards. And I just think that they did a good job in their homework on kind of how we approach solar panels. So Elizabeth, how would that move forward?
I think the commission would want to vote to see if they found that the contents of this was appropriate, and then it would be, Ed would create it into more of a policy, and that would be something that the commission would refer to whenever they had a solar panel application. And this is the revised version. This is the one where Ed had actually incorporated some of the comments that HPC had made after that application that was on John Street. So if everyone just wants to check to make sure that everything that was talked about that time is included here. But I think that that's the way that you would want to proceed, because at this point it's not adopted, so it would need a vote.
These become guidelines rather than an ordinance, right?
Correct. It's more of a policy.
I found one meaningful typo, but I can give it to Elizabeth later.
Is it just one? I could mark it down now, Roger.
Yeah, page 4, number 3 at the bottom of the page.
Or number 3, yeah.
It says visibility should be determined as seen from the sidewalks and streets in the Historic Preservation District when viewed approximately 6 feet above street level. I think there has to be a preposition in there, from approximately 6 feet above street level. I think it's a perspective question rather than a.
So you're saying instead of when, from?
No, viewed from approximately. We're a 6-foot person,
Viewed from,
which I'll
okay.
never be. Yeah, viewed from.
Okay.
From.
Yeah.
I've got it.
So I would go for 5'6" myself, but I guess we can go with averages.
Probably 5, 1 or 2, you know, if it's eye level. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be better for me. No, but I think 6 feet's okay.
Agree.
Any
But
other
I'd like to,
comments?
yeah.
No, I agree with Julie. I thought it was well done and flexible enough to allow our normal discourse about these things.
I mean, I do think we need to keep that flexibility. And I think the spirit of this document really talks about all of the variables that we need to consider. So it doesn't say they should be this way or that way. It just talks about the variables we consider.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to, I guess we can just click on these things, but some of the other policies they refer to, like the St. Louis policy, it'd be good to have those on hand and be able to take a peek at those as well, depending on the specific installation that we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Just for guidance, for other ideas and guidance.
But I think it's going to keep coming up, and I think it's good to have a policy. So, you know, I think we should move forward to endorse this as a policy.
You know, the most important ones are the National Park Services ones on the Secretary of Interior standards.
Mm-hmm. So is everyone in favor of moving this forward so it becomes a guideline?
Yes.
Okay. So Elizabeth, do you want us to vote?
Yes. Do you want to have a motion and a second on this?
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this as a document to be the basis as a policy?
I will move that.
Thanks, Tom. Second?
A second.
Okay, so moved by Tom, seconded by Roger. All in favor? Opposed? Oh,
Okay,
everyone,
Can you raise your hands because we can't on the audio? You can. Okay, so we've got yes would be Julie,
yeah.
Elric, Shirley, Roger, Robert, Tom White, and Brenna. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
And no one opposed.
Right.
Okay, unanimous.
All right. Now, do we still have our friend from the public here that wanted to talk about the Paul Robeson house?
Let me check to see. Oh,
He gave up on you.
yes, no more. No one's here.
I'm really sorry.
She did put a question in the Q&A. So
yes,
you know, if somebody wanted to reach out to her to answer that.
Yeah, I can read it too. Is that appropriate, David?
I think so.
I would just like to know if the renovation of the Robeson house has undergone the same application and scrutiny of the previous application. Was the design and renovation approved by this commission? Thank you.
So
Her email address is there. The answer is yes. I mean,
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. I don't know if she's going to get it now that she's not here.
well, she left her email address there.
Does she live near the Robeson house?
You could just answer her in an email.
I got to look for it now.
It's right at the bottom of the question.
Okay, let's see if I can find it again.
Yeah, they did a concept review and came back for a formal application.
It was
We visited the house and
we visited the house.
yeah.
spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
Roger,
Also,
could you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is Mr. Wampold still there?
No, there's no one in the participants. There's no. Let's see. There's no one in the public. No.
Okay. All right. Because I saw in the chat he wrote that he was there.
I see that too, but he's no longer there.
Okay.
I don't see her email anymore for some reason. Roger, could you do me a
Elizabeth, click on the answered tab and you'll see her comment or her question and it says thank you and then it has her email. ebcancilla@aol.com.
Let's see.
Did you click on the answered tab in Q&A?
Mine, let's see. Oh, yes.
So above your answer is her question, and it has her email.
I see her, but you know what? I don't have her email anymore. It doesn't
I'll
show
send
up.
it. I'll send it to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so that's all we have for public comment. We have just staff report and members report. That's it.
So I don't have a report, but I apologize. I should have made an announcement early to introduce Justin Lesko, which I know he was introduced to a few people, but not everyone.
Oh.
So Justin
there you are.
is the senior planner who recently started beginning of September? No, yes? Okay. It seems like you've been here longer. I'm tired for you. But he has kindly offered to help out to do the minutes for HPC, since Carrie will no longer be doing that. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce him, because he'll be working on a lot of other different things within the planning department and also some municipal work. So thank you, Justin.
Well, welcome. Welcome. Any other members' reports?
I just would like to say that I did send out an email shortly before the meeting about a lecture that is online from the library that Shirley Satterfield is going to give. And I just thought that it would be something we would be interested in. She's going to talk about the plaques, which were discussed at our historic preservation meetings and so on. So
Thank you for
as
that.
a fellow member.
Quick comment. It was a gathering sponsored by the Hopewell Historical Group yesterday, where the three preservation, the heads of the three preservation agencies for the township, for the borough of Pennington, and the borough of Hopewell, each made their presentations. We could benefit a bit from some of the literature that they put out about specific cases that come before them, particularly in Hopewell. I was amused that Max Hayden described the way we handle our meetings as being grilled as an applicant. But anyway, the other thing is that I have behind me, I have this 1860 map that I'm using increasingly, and there are a couple of things that intrigue me. One is that the property at 16668 John Street appears to be a quarry in 1860, which is pretty neat. But also we've been finding these 12/12 windows in odd places on Nassau Street, including 10 Nassau and 39 Nassau. I noticed here on Chambers Street, where Chambers Street is now, that in 1860 it was a sash factory. So I like to think that maybe they just went over there and picked up what they needed for the backs of both of those buildings. Not from me.
Yeah, Albert, that's why this street is called Quarry Street. When I moved back, my mother would dig to plant flowers, and all she got was all these gigantic stones. So yeah, and I found a lot of things, like I found a horseshoe, because they used to shoe horses on Holford Street. So yeah.
There's a nice little man who came to my house about a month ago, and he's now done both of that house and here. He's found five George I and George II coins on this property at the tavern. That would be between 1714 and 1760, which is kind of neat.
Where are you?
Wow.
I'm at the tavern this afternoon at the Barn Company's world headquarters.
Ringos.
Ringos, yeah.
Elizabeth's been here.
Oh, we've been there.
That's a great place to see, really. Yeah.
Maybe that was what, 10 years ago?
Oh, it was 2005, just before we did the barn at the Howell Farm, I think.
Where is
Now,
it?
Rick, you've got to get David Shore's son back. He can really dig now.
That's true. So we've got about 50 coins going back as far as the 1690s from the kitchen down below me here.
Where are you?
Ringo's, Route 31 Ringo's.
Oh, okay.
the Anderson Tavern during the Revolution. This building dates to 1737 to 1740.
Wow.
Wow. Well, thank you, everyone. We have a really big meeting next month. I think the hotel that's going, proposal for Nassau Street and Chambers Street is coming in. Poor Elizabeth has a monster report to do. And so we really appreciate everybody's commitment for that one because it's not going to be a short meeting.
Did anyone attend the meeting on Witherspoon Street?
Yes.
Yes.
For the Witherspoon Street improvements?
Yeah.
Yes.
I did.
Was there anything to report on that? I wasn't able to go. I had conflicting meetings.
Well, they went over their alternate designs, which are on the website, which you can look at. They talked about one-way, two-way, one-side parking, two-side parking, one-side parking, one-side loading. So, a lot of different options. And then what was more interesting was the feedback that came back from the public. Many businesses obviously were concerned about the loss of parking. Many residents really was open to really having it closed off and making it more like a public street. So, there's a bit of a dichotomy there. There's other interests about, what's going on with parking. I'm not parking, what's going on with bicycles, what's going on with the bus shelter, those things that are kind of integrated into it. So engineering took all those comments and they're working actually with planning themselves. And they've also asked me to kind of look at certain options, thoughts about what might work, what HPC might find acceptable, which I said, I never know how they, I never know what they think. A lot of times I said, but I can give you my best guess, a few options on what they might consider appropriate, that they would find acceptable and things like that. So that's what we're trying to work towards. Engineering is planning at this point coming to HPC in November for a formal submission and review. They might change it into a concept plan review instead, depending on what their timing is, but they are on the schedule right now to come in November.
So this is basically for the portion between Nassau Street and Spring, whereas the earlier meeting I went to was really from Spring Street out.
Robert, is from Nassau to Green Street.
Green Street, okay.
Yes, yeah,
But,
and Justin might also be able to chime in because he was also at the meeting.
Yeah, I was there as well. Well, Justin, you want to go?
Sure, yeah, I think Elizabeth described it pretty well. It's still just very much an ongoing process, and they're definitely going to take in more citizen input, business owner input, and definitely get the HPC's perspective once we further drill down at what everyone is looking to get to.
But Robert, they are also fully intending to still look at the rest of Witherspoon all the way to Valley. Mm-hmm. It's really just a question of timing around a grant. That is, we have a deadline to do the work by a certain time if we want to receive the grant funding. And the sense was we couldn't finish the study for the whole corridor in time. So they broke this piece off, and then next year they'll be looking at the rest of Witherspoon.
Yeah,
what was up on the website was only between Nassau and Spring.
Yeah.
Whereas
I wasn't at that. I got in that meeting late, but there was another meeting I attended, and I was concerned about the fact that they're improving from Nassau Street to Hallfish. But then we always forget the other part of Witherspoon Street, where the lights aren't the same, the sidewalks aren't the same. When they decorated Christmas, they forget about the rest of Witherspoon Street. And these are the places where laborers work that work for everybody else. So I think that they should think about starting to improve from Jackson Street down to Birch Avenue.
And I think, Shirley, the intent
part of
is
the
to
overall plan.
Yeah.
Right, and I think the intent is to kind of have a design scheme for Witherspoon Street, to have some consistency with lighting, sidewalks, that type of thing. So, and I think that public input's going to be very important to always, make sure that that's not lost as the process goes on.
Thanks.
Elizabeth?
For a bolder approach. Now, one proposal is to display hardball.
Yes?
I'd just say that I would encourage you to encourage engineering to go the concept plan route with us, given our past experience.
I will.
Thank you.
We're going to take you inside amongst these
All right. Well, Shirley, we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday from 7 to 8:30 for the library.
Well, you won't see me in the library. You'll see me in my house, but it's
Yeah. We'll see you on Zoom.
presented by the library, the Witherspoon Jackson Historical and Cultural Society, and the Historical Society of Princeton. Yeah.
And
That's
Robert,
great.
I think
and they
has passed into some of the country's most beautiful estates. And on today's show, we're going back in time.
so anyway, well, everybody can find it on Robert's email. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Take care all.
Bye.
Bye.